VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And a pleasant good afternoon. Good to have you with us here on Crosstalk today. Vic Eliasom, your host. And Mr. Gordon Morris there introducing the program, and right through the glass window that I'm looking at Matthew Middlebrooks, who's our call screener, and we're a team today. But boy, have we got things to talk about. But first, before we do, I want you to know that we have at least 95 radio stations that carry Crosstalk. And there are stations that are owned by networks, groups that come together and say, we would like to carry this information on the air. We do not pay for airtime. They provide the airtime. And so if you appreciate Crosstalk, you have every good reason to support your local station. Now, some of those local stations may be VCY stations, and you know by their call letters if they are. But some of them are other networks, and we'd like to recognize them and say, folks, support your local radio ministry, your local network, as they make this information available. Now, today, specifically, this Wednesday the 21st, many of you hear us over the Rejoice Radio Network, coming out of Pensacola, Florida. They have numbers of stations throughout the South and in even the upper Midwest. And they're having their share-a-thon today and tomorrow. And if you appreciate their airing Crosstalk, we would ask you to get behind and support them. Do whatever you can to help them. And their call number for the share-a-thon for the Rejoice Network is one you can write down. If you're listening on a Rejoice station, this is for you. The number for pledges over Rejoice Radio Network is 1-800-726-1191. That's 800-726-1191. Of course, if you're listening on another network or you're listening to other stations, and when they have their share-a-thons, we're happy to announce those as well. But I do know this, that from time to time we view various web pages from various networks that we work with, and there are times when all of us face those times of shortfall. And I do know that the networks we're talking about today always need your prayerful support as we provide vital information. So again, if you're listening to RBN and Rejoice, stand behind them, will you? Okay. Every day when I go, well, I have to confess, I don't every day go to McDonald's, but once in a while I do. And now I get a salad. I mean, and some of those things. I try to stay away from the destructive stuff. But every time I'm there and then I leave and I have to glance out of the right side of my eye, there I see a building with a huge sign that says AFL-CIO on it. The sign isn't really that issue. I remember when I was in grocery work out in Pasadena, California, I had to be part of I think it was a Teamsters union. I had to drive a truck. So a lot of different things that are out there. But what I'm seeing in the windows of this place, window after window after window, little 8.5 by 11 or 9 by 12 things with purple and orange fists raised up in the window as a fist of hatred. And as you see this, of course, they underline the cause, whatever they're standing for. They say, stand with us. Well, one of the shocking things, if you go into some of the symbols of rebellion, the symbols of anarchy, you'll find that same symbol of a fist raised, sometimes with a star, or sometimes with a hammer and sickle of years past. But you see this hand raised. Now, the other day I didn't go to McDonald's. I went down the highway to another place and grabbed a quick sandwich. It was a wholesome sandwich. It was good. But as I went down Valise Street, there I saw the big wall of the M.E.T., I think it's or the teachers, is it, whatever it is. It's a local teachers union here in Milwaukee. And there on the wall, I see a symbol and a message that instructs people to react in a certain way. There's a big recall thing happening, and they're wanting to recall politicians, whoever they might be, and protect the children. And one of the things that so many people, even in our country, don't realize is that there are some conservative movements that are protecting the children. In our particular case, millions of dollars were rescued that were being paid out exorbitant fees on health care for school teachers and administrators and people in the educational system. And when they moved from the union-supported insurance company to one that they had options and much more within budget, they found all of a sudden they didn't have to fire their art teachers and their music teachers and all of those in the fine arts area. Now they have hundreds of thousands of dollars available to reinforce these areas of finer education. Now, whatever it is, I mean, this big recall thing here in Wisconsin is, of course, really a big issue. But let me just say this, that there are issues that we are talking about today that are very serious, and I hate cell phones. But there are issues that we face, and may I say that we need to be fully aware that the issues that oftentimes look so serious are dressed up with all kinds of unique and interesting hardware to make things look even more severe, more serious. I mean, helping rescue our kids by recalling politicians. I don't see the connection when whatever the efforts have been of recent has been providing more money for education. But you see this. And so that starts our conversation today about public education. But I'm going to share a story that's happening in our town right now. In fact, tomorrow night, there's a big committee that's meeting of the Department of MPS. The MPS committee is, of course, open to the public, and people can come and take their place in the MPS auditorium, administrative building there where you can sit in the seat, but you can also sign up to speak or whatever. For local people, it's at 52nd and Volete Street. But what's going to happen is that they are going to be discussing a new concoction. This is called the Student Bill of Rights. Earlier today, Jim Schneider, our program director and co-host, told the story to our Wisconsin and our local audience. But I felt there was enough significance that we share it with you, because what happens here can well happen in your town tomorrow. And frankly, you've heard me say this so often. Sometimes I feel that the inmates have taken over the asylum, or that lunacy has taken over. And I'm serious. When you hear what I've got to share with you, you will be shocked. The Student Bill of Rights, and I have it in my hands, written by the students of Youth Empowered in the Struggle. The organization is known as Y.E.S. Youth Empowered in the Struggle. And they are demanding a Student Bill of Rights that you're not going to believe. But here it is. They're demanding that students have the right to organize and have a voice in their school. They're demanding that student representatives should be included in any decision-making that significantly affects the student body. Students, they're demanding, and there are other things they're demanding too, but these are the major things. Students and parents and guardians are to be informed of the students' rights. Students shall present the Student Bill of Rights peer-to-peer annually and have access to a copy. Students shall have a right to a school environment where all teachers and staff have the right to collective bargaining. Oh, it goes on. It says students have the right to a focused and peaceful environment through mutual respect between teachers and students. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. This should translate into equal power of dynamics in the classroom. and expectations applied equally to both students and adults, meaning that if a student disagrees with what the teacher's teaching, they can stand up and tell the teacher off. Equal say, the classroom. Kind of reminds you of the modern family today, doesn't it? Kind of reminds you to what is happening in the homes today. It used to be that the biblical perspective was that the older teach the younger. But today it's those old fogies, those idiots. They don't understand. In fact, we found educators, even in our city some months back, were explaining to the kids that their parents really are out of it. They don't understand the new world in which they're growing. Now, you heard what that was. It says students have the right to a focused and peaceful environment through mutual respect. Well, that sounds great until they have a brawl or a fight in the school. I knew one young lady, she was in a public school. She said they had to go through metal detectors when they came in, and roving the halls were guards wearing billy clubs in order to make sure peace was maintained. Now, folks, this isn't in some third world country. This is in America. This is, in fact, the one school I was talking about where they were carrying billy clubs used to be among the top 5 academic schools in the United States of America, Washington High School. But you see, we're looking at demands, and every student has the right to a quality education that meets his or her needs, absolutely. Students have the right to additional support, such as tutoring and support for students with disabilities. Well, if the kids are blowing all their time playing video games and computer games and don't get their stuff done and they need a tutor to brush up for the final exam, I'd kind of question that. But students with disabilities and learning disabilities, I can appreciate that. But then it says students have the right to hands-on cultural activities to enhance their learning experience, including access to technology, arts, and music. Student input should be listened to in regards to teaching style. So, folks, if the kid doesn't like the teacher's style, they're being denied their rights. They should be listened to in regards to the classroom activities in order to craft a classroom environment in which students learn best. And by the way, kids know best, right? Another one, students have the right to an affordable, nutritious, and dignified lunch that is properly cooked, as well as a lunch period that allows sufficient time to eat. I just about choked on this one. Junk food, kids that don't even eat in school but dash out the door to a quick food place, or kids who smuggle junk into the school that is not healthy. This is shocking. We're going to go further in the next quarter hour with rights for students, the Student Bill of Rights.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, creation seminar speaker and president of the Institute for Creation Research.
Dr. Morris, how intelligent are birds?
Chris, some birds are incredibly smart. One bird on the island of Corsica was found to gather certain plant blossoms and line their nests with these colorful blossoms, but not just for decoration. These scented herbs of lavender and mint and others are known to fight bacteria and fungi and repel insects and other parasites. The birds put them in their nest to protect their chicks from invaders. Chris, how do they know to do this, and how do they pass this on to their offspring so that they all do it? The point is that animals were created by an intelligent creator with all the abilities needed to survive and continue that kind. What a wonderful creator. And we read all about him back in Genesis.
If you would like to learn more about science from a Christian perspective, please visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where today we're talking about a student bill of rights being crafted here in Wisconsin. In fact, make it direct Milwaukee. And it's going to be discussed coming up here tomorrow in the committee of the, that's right, MPS. They're the ones that want to discuss this issue to make sure that the kids have rights, privileges. This is unbelievable. But it's the kind of a thing that, well, it's out there. The Milwaukee School Board is considering it on Thursday, March 27th at 5:30 p.m. The Legislative Rules and Policies Committee of Milwaukee Public School Board will be considering the passage. They must have already discussed it. Considering the passage of a student bill of rights, drafted by students. Not all students, no. Drafted by students of Y.E.S, Youth Empowered in the Struggle. This is a student arm of a group which uses the clenched fist often seen in the Madison protests. We feel, in my opinion, it's part of the Occupy movement. And it's happening. But it could happen in your town next. Now, the kids are demanding, at least according to this organization, that they're demanding an affordable, nutritious, and dignified lunch. Dignified. Well, first of all, they come dressed to school looking like slobs. Unshaven, unclean, some of them reeking because they don't know how to take a shower. And now they want dignity in the lunch hour. A food that's properly cooked. Well, you want to know something? In the days coming up in the future, this is going to become even more complex because we have Islamic students will want it properly cooked. And the only way a meal can be properly produced, and you're seeing it now under veiled conditions, it's called halal, H-A-L-L, halal, meaning that the food is properly cooked, and not only cooked, but blessed by an Islamic imam. And so we want to have those affordable, nutritious, dignified lunches. They ought to wear a tux to lunch, okay? If a student's family financial situation prohibits him from paying school fees, they should have the right to financial assistance. All students deserve access to good transportation to and from school. Well, if you've ever seen what happens to buses after they've been used to haul kids to school with seats marked and scarred and graffiti on the walls of the buses and, yeah, even mechanical devices faulty because of the kids' abuse. No, not all kids. But they want good transportation to and from school. That's it. Let's have a taxi cab deliver every kid to and from school. That'll do it. Or a limo. How about that? It says all students deserve a school facility that is a safe, adequate space for learning. Oh, this goes on. That's just page 1. Students have the right to learn 2 languages, including their home language. Students who are in the process of learning English deserve access to the school's curriculum with support in their native language. You know, my mom and my father, I should say not my mom, but my father, and his parents came to this country from Sweden. They came through Ellis Island, and their commitment to being an American involved declaring their loyalty to this country and all that it has, including language. Well, it took a while for my grandparents to kind of get rid of Swedish. In fact, I don't know if they ever did totally. But the main English was the language. Students who are proficient in English shall still be given the opportunity to continue developing their native language in fluency in the literary skills. Bilingual students deserve access to teachers who are certified in bilingual education by the Department of Public Instruction, bilingual curricular resources and materials, and bilingual guidance counseling. Now, my question is, what culture is education preparing these young people for? Are we going to send them overseas to a foreign country? Or was it that they're wanting to develop and grow where they're planted in America? Well, The next item on this Bill of Rights, it goes on, and I'll hit it fast here. Students have the right to freedom from all forms of discrimination. This includes, but is not limited to, discrimination based on ethnicity. You can't pick on Swedes. Class, sex, disability, pregnancy, religion, native language, sexual orientation. And then beyond that, gender expression. So if your orientation is cross-wired, and then you may have the body of a male, but you feel better coming in a dress to school. Oh, and it goes on. Freedom from discrimination against housing status, of self-expression. If you want to use self-expression and you want to curse and use vile language, well, you can't impede someone's ability to express himself, can you? Personal style or immigration status. Oh, there's more, but it goes on here. Students have the right to a culturally diverse, anti-racist curriculum that values ethnic studies and reflects the student body and the diversity of the United States. Students have the right to form any student organization or group free from discrimination, as long as the group does not advocate discrimination or harm toward others. Oh, so you can have your own witches' coven. You can have your own group of people who are involved in bestiality. It says anything, any student organization. How about potheads? How about somebody that's, well, you know what I'm saying. Let's go further. This Bill of Rights is so broad-sweeping. Schools must document the demographics of students who are reprimanded by police in school. They got to find out where they live. If they're suspended or expelled, in order to track and protect against racial profiling. I mean, if you see a kid breaking the window in a house, worse yet, stealing a car, or beating somebody to a pulp, and a police officer is called to the scene and is there to apprehend against this viciousness, and we are going to worry about racial profiling? Folks, this says that students have the right to appeal if they feel they've been discriminated against. Now, another area of rights, every student has a right to a school environment in which they feel safe. That sounds good. Schools should not reflect prison-like conditions or perpetuate this mentality toward the student body. Students have the right to be informed of security's reasonable cause before being singled out for searching or questioning. Oh, okay, so if somebody gets beat up outside the school and there were 5 or 6 people and they're questioning them, that they just don't want to be drawn out or singled out. Well, schools should not rely upon Schools should not rely upon the police to resolve issues that can be handled by mediation, by students, by administration, or faculty members through restorative justice model. Figure that one out. Another right, police and security officers cannot be aggressive, violent, or disrespectful towards students. Students have the right to a clear and simple complaint process that produces real results if they feel they have been unfairly searched or punished or disrespected by an officer. Oh, one final thing, this little issue of rights. All students have the right to qualified staff who will assist them through their college application process and encourage them to attain a post-secondary education. I mean, how to fill out the application? You're graduating from high school and can't fill out an application? You need help. Okay. Students have the right to organize counseling programs that will guide and advise them throughout their high school years. Students have the right to confidentiality in these programs, with the exception of direct and imminent harm to the student or another person. Students have the right to beneficial activities aimed to improve their self-esteem, physical well-being, and overall person. This includes the right to health information, including full information and sexual health. Students have the right to be present with unbiased truths that aid. Let me back that up. They have the right to be presented with unbiased truths that aid the students in transition. This is very poorly written for my eyes here. That they have the right to aid students in the transition from school to higher education or the workforce. And students who have plans to enter the workforce should be provided with worker rights orientation in the same way that a college-bound students receive support to continue their education. Students have the right to know what kind of activities and courses favor them in the college admission process. And listen to this one, folks. This is the last. Undocumented students should have the right to access in-state tuition rates at colleges and universities in their state of reference. Folks, they're going to be discussing and hopefully passing this thing at the Board of Education in our town tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. Why would they hold a meeting like this at supper time? Why don't they hold it at 6 o'clock or 7, or a time when thinking people can finish a meal, a well-prepared meal, one that gives them time to finish it, and then be at this meeting? Yes, I probably sound sarcastic today, but sometimes we go from the sublime to the ridiculous. And I think the Milwaukee Public Schools has just done so. This is a school that not too many months ago I sat in a meeting and heard them complaining about the fact that they were having to close some schools and the fact that they didn't have the resources that Christian schools had where they could teach about religion, and they were so limited and didn't have the resources to keep the schools open. Well, folks, these are your tax dollars at work, and they will be around in your town, ladies and gentlemen. This idea that appears to be circulated by the Occupy movement, now on a student level, is not just isolated to our town. But I'll tell you this, it's my opinion that it's coming to your town in the not-too-distant future. Student Bill of Rights. Keep your ears open, folks. If you've got kids in school, warn them if they hear some discussion about a Student Bill of Rights. And who's writing this thing? Who's coming up with the rights that they claim? Frankly, as I said before, I think our country's going off course. I think our hometown's going off course here in this town. But we're going to be talking about this and a number of other issues as we come back. But we are going to open our phone lines right now if you want to call with your opinions on this bizarre type of facilitating of the Milwaukee Public Schools and a new Student Bill of Rights. Your thoughts as you call. And our telephone number is 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. We've got more to talk about, but we shall return in a moment. This is Crosstalk.
Most people think of Freemasonry as a secretive but benevolent fraternity. But what exactly is it? Is it more than it seems on the surface? In the handy-sized booklet, authors John Ankerberg, John Weldon, and Dylan Burrows present thought-provoking information, answering such questions as, what do the Masons teach about Jesus, salvation, and life after death? What do Masonic symbols represent? Is the God of the Bible also the God of the Lodge? Are Masonry and Christianity compatible? Can Christians join the Lodge in good conscience? The booklet provides a careful examination of Masonry compared to biblical truth. To obtain your copy of The Facts on the Masonic Lodge, send a donation of $8 or more to VCY America, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. To make your donation by phone, call 1-800-729-9829. That's 1-800-729-9829.
Okay, we've got one more story to give you, and this one has a soundbite as well. I want to share it with you. It's on a different page, but it comes from Chicago. WorldNet Daily provides the story. It deals with our president when he was a young person. The postman, Ayers family, put foreigner Obama through school. That's what the allegation is. Here it is, Dateline Chicago. Did the parents of former Weatherman Underground terrorist Bill Ayers help finance Barack Obama's Harvard education? Did Ayers' mother believe Obama was a foreign student? And was the young Obama convinced at that time, long before he ever entered politics, that he was going to become the President of the United States? We have an interesting interview, a retired U.S. Postal Service carrier who delivered mail to Tom and Mary Ayers, Bill Ayers' mother and father, in the Chicago suburb in the late 80s and early 90s. And he claimed to have met Barack Obama in front of the Ayers' home. Empathetically, he says yes to these three questions. Now, his name is Alan Hulton. Hulton. He was commended for 39 years of honorable service with the United States Postal Service. He was given a sworn affidavit to investigators commissioned by the Maricopa County, Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio to determine whether Obama is eligible for Arizona's election ballot. And Hulton has recorded about 3 hours of video and interviews with WorldNet Daily. But Mr. Hulton says that in a conversation with Mary Ayers, while on his route, he learned of the couple's enthusiasm and support for a black foreign student. One bright, warm Chicagoland day, he recounts he met the student who fit Mary Ayers' description in front of the Ayers home in Glen Ellen, Illinois. The young man, Mr. Hulton is convinced, was Barack Hussein Obama. Hulton delivered mail to the Ayers, who are now both deceased, when he was stationed at the post office in Glen Ellen in the upper middle-class suburb, 25 miles west of downtown Chicago. It was a beautiful neighborhood, one of the nicer routes of all the letter carriers. They'd love to have had it, said Hulton. He had some very large and beautiful homes to deliver mail to. But I want you to listen to an interview that Jerome Corsi, Dr. Corsi, had with this gentleman who carried mail to the home of Bill Ayers' family.
My name is Al Hulton.
And when were you born?
I was born February 17, 1943. I'm 69. I was a letter carrier with the Glen Ellen Postal Service. Carried mail from 1962 to 2001.
Were you in Glen Ellen, Illinois, which I believe is 60137, is that correct?
That's right. It was a very beautiful neighborhood, and it was one of the nicer routes that any of the letter carriers would have liked to have had.
Was there any one address in particular that we're going to talk about that you delivered mail to? And who resided there?
That was Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Ayers.
And who are they?
Thomas Ayers was formerly president of Commonwealth Edison. He has a son that's been in the news whose name is Bill Ayers.
Now, did you ever know Tom Ayers, the husband of Mary Ayers?
I had a conversation with him not too long after they first moved in to their home. And basically it opened up, he asked me about my job and how I liked my job and things in particular about my employment situation. And then he started in on what I refer to as a Marxist type of viewpoint. Essentially, it had to do with the plight of the working man, maybe being taken advantage of by corporations or the people that employ them. And I just had this uncomfortable feeling that he thought he knew about my situation as a working person better than I did, and that he knew what was best for me.
Can you recall the conversation in the early 1990s with Mary?
Yeah, one day she came to the door when I came up to the house with the mail, and after a greeting, she started enthusiastically talking to me about this young black student that they were helping out, and she referred to him as a foreign student, and he had a strange name. She mentioned it. I didn't remember it at the time, and I was just kind of taken aback by how enthusiastic she was about him.
Did you ever meet this young student?
Well, I don't know if it's some months or even a year later, there was a young man, black man, walking down the street just after I had delivered the mail to the heir's home, and he greeted me, and he was very polite. He was nicely dressed, informally dressed, and immediately he entered into conversation with me and told me that he had taken the train out from Chicago, and he had come to thank the heir's family personally for helping him with his education. I asked him, I said, well, now that you're out of school, what are your plans? What are you going to do? And he said, and he looked right at me, he says, I'm going to be president of the United States. And there was kind of a little bit of a grin at his face when he said it. And I know how people will say things because they have an ambition or something, but it did not come across that way. It came across like this was something that's already been determined. And I have to tell you that it struck me in such a way I was speechless for a moment.
How close were you to the Ayers home when the conversation started?
We were on the public walk right in front of their home.
You associated this young man you met in front of the house with the same young man that Mary had told you about?
Absolutely.
What made you think it was the same person?
Because he had come to thank them for helping with his education, and that was the topic of the conversation that I had with Mary.
Barack Obama running for office. Are you certain that this was the young black male you saw in front of the Ayers home?
I am absolutely positive.
Well, there you hear some conversation, the mail carrier. And, of course, that question is, what was this an advanced plan, or was this just a coincidence? Our lines are jammed right now, and we're going to go to line number 4, Ringgold, Georgia, and you are on the air. Welcome to Crosstalk.
Okay, you mentioned about all the mess in the school. Now, I know this went on with about George Bush's No Child Left Behind. Mm-hmm. I know this went on in Catoosa County School. My wife is a bus driver. I won't name it. Well, they had, at the time, they only had 2 high schools in there. And one school didn't offer the subject. This one student wanted, they had to bus it, 10 miles across the county on one of those full-size school buses. Had to do it or lose those funds. Now, I know that happened. And also, there are some southern states, I think, that are getting something about if the students aren't documented, that they're not going to be able to go to school. I think that's a pretty good thing.
Thank you so much, Doug from Ringgold, Georgia. You're going to move ahead right now to Jan in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Jan, you're on the air.
Yes, I have a sister that teaches in school, and I think sometimes she would like to think what the rights are for the teachers.
Yes.
Because she has felt she was in a particularly, bad school, and she felt like she didn't have any rights, and the disrespect of the students already, it was like they needed something other than more rights.
I've talked to several teachers who say that it would be appropriate for all teachers, at least in some of the schools we're talking about here, to have risk pay, special liability.
Right,
Thank you so much, Jan. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Linda on line number 2. Linda in Milwaukee. Go ahead.
Hi. Yes, hi, Vic. I'm going back to the 90s when I had a teenager in a kind of a rough high school. And I actually went and they allowed me to volunteer in their high school. I'm a Christian, and they allowed me in there, and I felt the Lord had opened a door. But the things I saw there, it's when Bill and Hillary were trying to pass the same kind of a law, making it difficult to discipline your children. I was so appalled. I could not do one thing with my child. She ended up paying the consequences, and just mayhem when you can't control kids in the school. And it's really funny that I went to the library today, and I thought, I don't even know why I'm here, Lord, but I ended up picking up a book called I Refuse to Raise a Brat. And it just took me back. When you don't have any respect from your children, they actually don't feel safe. Children with no rules to guide them and no parent in the house. And I really think it starts at home, but they're taking it to the schools, and I think we need to pray again to get it back.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate that. From Milwaukee, lines are clear, 800-733-9829. Well, as we're looking at what I call the literal crumbling of common sense when it comes to operating school districts, I have sat in the school meetings when the school board meets over here at Valete Street over many years. And I've heard people who are administrators who are on the school board who have made some statements or advocated for certain expenditures that, in my opinion, go way beyond the realm of reality and sanity. Throwing good money after bad, taking schools that are functional and can be upgraded and instead bring in the wrecking ball, build a new one. Of course, it doesn't cost them anything. It's your tax dollar. But again, this happens not just in our town, but everybody's town. And this issue of the Students' Bill of Rights, I'll guarantee you, in my opinion, that Bill of Rights did not come from the kids in the local schools here, but that it came from an organization that, as I watch it, you see that there's an issue of tearing down our country, something that is subversive, in my opinion, something that is absolutely out of control, and they're declaring good to be bad and bad to be good. And I cannot understand. I talked to a teacher the other day up in northern Wisconsin who said that they had been in the public sector and they had had some opportunities to live their life as an example and share Christ, but they said it's risky business. And so we see a new Bill of Rights. And don't forget that one. An excellent meal, well prepared, nourishing, and plenty of time to eat it. We'll be back with the rest of our program. Our phone number, 800-733-9829.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. As I study Romans chapter 1 and I look at the 5 signs or 5 consequences that God is removing his hand of protection from a nation, I think I see what's happening to America more clearly. One of the things I must be careful of is the sin or desire to place my family above what God desires for my family. God may very well want my children to live in a nation that is hostile to them so that they might seek him. I have to ask myself as a father, has the materialism of our nation made our children and grandchildren more likely to seek after God? Or are they materially satisfied and have need of nothing? If God desires persecution to come to our nation, to get the attention of our children and grandchildren, and to drive them to the cross, I pray for persecution. It's better to be persecuted in this life and come to salvation through Christ than to be comfortable in this life and to be tormented in hell for eternity. For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. As we're talking about these issues today, let me ask a question of you. What do you think needs to be done to bring resistance to some of these ideas that seem to be so crazy? What needs to be done to bring relief from this strange and bizarre stack of belief systems that are being foisted upon the American people by subversive organizations that are identifying themselves as kids, as young people? But you see the text of their writing, the demands of their presentation, and you find that it's more than just some kids wanting rights. And, isn't education a privilege? Isn't it something we should be thankful for? If it wasn't, then why are so many kids wasting it by careless living? By sitting there by the hour gaming on their computers, you've got kids that are buying their final exam in school. They paid somebody else to do it. Of course, that's done in college too. You find term papers that are written by people other than the one who paid for them. Folks, ethics, standards, right and wrong, are all part of the issue. And when you throw God's standards out, when you throw God's principles out, when in fact you throw God out, our nation's in serious trouble. Let's go to Robbie in Florida. And Robbie, you are on the air. Go right ahead. Robbie, we got to turn the radio off, please.
Okay, off.
Please, please do not have the radio on. Okay.
Okay, the radio's off.
Good. You are on the air.
Cool. I guess I just wanted to know a couple of the demands that were listed in the Bill of Rights. You were just reading. What's the problem with those? With some of those?
Well, ma'am, first of all, how old a person are you?
I'm 28.
Okay. First of all, when you're talking about some of these demands that are already there, they're demanding, for instance, undocumented students should have the right to access in-state tuition rates at the colleges and universities in the state of their residence. These are illegals.
Mm-hmm. You don't think that everyone deserves the right to a higher education?
Ma'am, that means car thieves should be able to be out on the streets, right?
I'm a male, actually.
What?
A male. You said ma'am.
I'm sorry. I'm confused here.
It's okay. It's okay to be confused.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what your question is, so maybe you can state that to our call screener, and then we'll know how to try to answer your call, okay? We'll move right along to John in Pennsylvania. John, how are you?
Undocumented workers have a right to an education. That really threw me off.
If you can crash into something, it'd be like crashing into an apartment house and finding a vacant apartment and living there. And, hey, I've got a right to the heat. I've got a right to the lights. I've got a right to live here because I broke in. I went across the border, right?
But, the tail truly is wagging the dog. And I ran for office in my state. And to a person, every teacher that I talked to really had a major issue with the loss of any kind of control in their classrooms. And now you have a student, and first of all, I'd like to know which union lawyer wrote that Bill of Rights, first of all. Secondly, students are demanding equality in the classroom. This is complete anarchy they're demanding.
That means the teacher, if they disagree with what the teacher taught them, and if the teacher taught them 1 and 1 is 2, and they say, I don't believe it, and stand up and curse the teacher, you see what I'm saying?
I had a couple teachers in high school that if we had done that, they would have led with their fists. Mm-hmm. And, not to say that that's the right way to do it, but,
no.
I'm a pretty big guy, and there was a lot of big guys. And with guys like us, that's kind of the way you had to have a heavy hand. Mm-hmm. And then furthermore, if as a student, if I would have brought this home to my parents, especially my father, I mean, I probably would have been knocked out cold for even suggesting it.
A student Bill of Rights, and boy, I mean, I only read about a third of them. There's a bunch.
Oh my gosh. You only read a third. I mean, I can't even imagine what else is in there.
It says students have the right to organize across schools. The students students of a district have the right to establish an inter-school organization in which the issues of different schools are shared, and the entire student community can provide support to ensure that no school is isolated. I mean,
this is total collectivism.
Right. Well,
okay.
Pennsylvania.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, John, from Pennsylvania. Let's go to Idaho and talk to Jeff. Jeff, you're on the air.
Well, I just wanted to call because I had listened to the audio tape between the mail carrier and what was claimed to be President Obama. And today, if you go to CNN.com, yesterday, with it being the day before, with it being St. Patty's Day, they awarded President Obama a certificate for commemorating him being Irish somehow,
right.
like honorarily, I think it is. But in the actual media, when they handed him the certificate, he made a flippant joke saying, "I'm going to hang this certificate up next to my birth certificate." And everyone thought that was just so funny. But to me, it goes to further the fact that he's very flippant about the fact that his birth certificate is such a joke, and he doesn't take it seriously. And that's really the point, is that it's a very serious issue. And if he's going to be making flippant jokes about that, he's not upholding his oath of office to consider that as something that's essential, which is constitutionally based. That's my point.
Thank you, Jeff from Idaho. Laval, Wisconsin, and Scott, you're on the air. Got about 30 seconds.
Hi, Vic. I was just wondering who's going to show up at this meeting with a Parents' Bill of Rights?
I hope there are taxpayers there by the hundreds.
And if they need reference to that, the Old Testament has one. It's called the Ten Commandments. And the New Testament has one. It's called the Beatitudes. If they initiate those as Parents' and Students' Bill of Rights, I don't think we'll have a whole lot of problems in our school.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that very much. Well, we have come to the end of a program. Again, some weird and different topics today. But it's confusion in our culture. Confusion. The phone call that we had, someone alleging to be a male, obviously demonstrated some of that confusion. And it's all around us. We need to pray for wisdom, pray for understanding, pray that God will give us guidance in a very confused world where wrong seems right and right seems wrong. Again, if you're listening in Pensacola or listening to the Rejoice Network, don't forget their Share-a-thon is on the air today. Stand with them and support them is our prayer as well. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.